Oh, hey, we're live. What's up, everybody? Welcome, LinkedIn, to Socialive strategy session. Today, we're going to be talking about some live video content types that'll work great on LinkedIn. Now, LinkedIn Live is still in beta. It's still early. It's still only available to select people, but we're starting to see some really great broadcasts coming out. And what we're going to do today is take our experience and expertise in live video, having watched Facebook Live, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and we're going to apply our knowledge there to LinkedIn and kind of predict some content types that are going to work really well for LinkedIn Live. Today, I'm going to be joined by a special guest from our New York office. One of my favorite people in the company, Chloe Day, will be joining us. So let's cut over to Chloe and see how she's doing out there in New York.
Hey, Daniel.
Chloe, how are you? Let's go through the basics. How's the weather on the other side of the country? What's going on out there?
So the weather today, we are, as you know, based in Brooklyn. It's a total mood. It's a little gloomy, a little, slow on the streets. So I'm really excited to be talking to you. You're brightening up my day.
Well, that's great. Over here in California, it's another sunny, beautiful day. Very, very nice. So we're enjoying ourselves over here, but still happy to talk to you and happy to talk about some LinkedIn Live content types. With LinkedIn Live or any live video, there's three important principles to keep in mind. We're going to go into a lot more detail on those next broadcast with some other team members, but really you have to be consistent, you have to be authentic, and you have to be flexible. Just like Chloe and I are going to do today, some of this is planned, but some of this may go in a different direction, and you just have to be flexible with your broadcast and continue to move forward. So, Chloe, let's get into the details. I think personally, interviews and discussions are going to be a really great way to use live video on LinkedIn. Now, if you just think about it, you can interview somebody high level within your company, a certain expert within your company. You can interview people outside of your company. But interviews and discussions are really a way to bring knowledge to your audience, to build credibility, and to really show some interesting content in a dynamic way. What do you think about that, Chloe?
Oh, no, I absolutely do. I mean, interviews and discussions are, I think, like you said, like a really good bread and butter go-to for a LinkedIn audience. It's a young professional audience. It's a way to see people interact with a particular kind of product or idea or current event and always get like multiple perspectives. So yeah, I definitely think that content's going to perform really, really well for a LinkedIn audience. I'm excited to see that.
Cool. Well, let's throw it over to you. I mean, what type of content are you looking for that you think is going to do well on LinkedIn?
Yeah, definitely. I think that because it's such a young professional audience or professional audience, we're going to see a lot of tutorials and demonstrations. We have LinkedIn is kind of a unique channel in that it's companies interacting with other companies, and specifically you're usually there because you participate in a professional playing field. So I think LinkedIn Live is an awesome opportunity to display your product in a dynamic way or your service where you're able to actually engage with the audience who's probably purchasing or utilizing that product or service, or even has expertise in what you're demonstrating. So you can actually have a little bit of shared thought starters across the LinkedIn channel. So I definitely think that offers a lot of opportunity. And definitely, like we've seen, when doing a product walkthrough really helps demystify what can be a complicated process. So obviously, bringing that to your LinkedIn audience can really help as a selling tool for people who are here to appeal to other businesses. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. And I think really when you look at it from a high level, what these tutorials and demonstrations do for you is two things. They make your company feel really approachable. People feel comfortable with your brand or your product. So if you think of a SaaS company that's maybe going to be used by anyone 20 to 50 years old, and there's a lot of ins and outs to it, nuances, things you need to know.
Yeah.
Seeing people talk about that and demonstrate it on screen consistently is going to make you way more comfortable with that product before you even start to use it. So I totally agree. I'm really excited to see more tutorials and demonstrations. And I think one thing that kind of piggybacks off of those is live presentations, So we'll see that there's some overlap in these content types, and you can really knock out a few of them in one broadcast. But live presentations are great. Whether there's something groundbreaking you want to show, you want to walk people through something, whatever it is, like a live presentation is so engaging because you can engage the audience through comments, through questions. Like it just really covers all these different content types that we're going to be talking about. And it's just really a great way that you to show off everything, take control of when you're announcing anything, and do it yourself and set the tone yourself rather than going through press or other things like that. So I think also with live presentations, you're going to see it doesn't have to be something that's hugely momentous that you're doing a live presentation for. You're going to start seeing more micro presentations on niche subject matter that I think is really going to be great for the LinkedIn community to see all these niche live presentations, and people can really build a community within their industry or their profession.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, something that I'm seeing quite a bit of, and a lot of the conversations I'm having around companies interested in live video right now, is to really emulate what has been so successful in kind of the TED Talk style. And, you know, and I think that's wonderful because it brings a lot of ethos into the enterprise and business space in a presentation format like that. So yeah, definitely have been finding more and more requests for having creative conversation around better ways to harness live presentation formats. So I think it's really awesome.
Yeah, I really like the analogy to TED Talks, and you know, those obviously come in all different shapes and sizes, and I think LinkedIn Live is going to be an expansion of that. So that's a great point, Chloe. And what else? We're 3 down. We got 4 more.
I've got number 4.
What else are we going to talk about?
I've got 4 for you. So what I'm really thinking about is something that we're already so familiar with, but that's going to be happening in a more enhanced way, which is company news and announcements. You know what I mean? That kind of breaking news style, that way of keeping your audience and the public informed of changes within your company. And I think we're going to see this really start to grow in so many exciting ways. I think obviously like the basic point of informing people of company news is, yes, to give them the latest and greatest around what's happening with the company, but we're going to be able to see more dynamic when you're unveiling new products and announcing partnerships. We already know that having the live aspect really promotes engagement across all other social channels, and we expect that to be true over LinkedIn as well. So having an audience really tune in for those big breaking news opportunities, I think is pretty exciting. It's live video, just like breaking news, is time bound, it's current, it's now. So I think it really supports the idea of a great place to have the conversation of what's going on exactly in the moment.
Totally. Yeah, and again, I think there's 2 really important factors here, and one of them is big companies will have the ability to really take control of their announcements. So a lot of traditional methods is you go through PR, you can secure an exclusive, then other people pick it up. But you know, if a company wants to, they can make their news and announcements themselves on LinkedIn. They can tease the broadcast. They can really play it up. They don't have to rely on press or media or any pitches or anything like that. They take control themselves with their followers on LinkedIn. Another thing I'm really looking out for and curious to see if it picks up steam is executives at big companies also making announcements on their individual LinkedIn pages. So if you think about big corporations, there's no reason the CEO or the CFO or somebody can't make an announcement live themselves. So I'm interested to see how influencers within a company play into this company news and announcements, and how executives are going to leverage LinkedIn Live themselves.
Oh, exactly. It goes right to what you were saying about humanizing your brand, right? It's always better to put a face with a name. And I think hearing from the top executives at an organization really brings in a lot of the thought leadership, the core values, the ethos of a company, and people are just more prone to connect to the message. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah, definitely. So let's get into another type. You know, I think something that is emerging really a lot on LinkedIn is the sharing of insights and analysis. I think that's going to continue to expand with LinkedIn Live because there's the ability to have the 2-way communication. There's the community aspect, and there's, you know, just really more momentum behind knowledge sharing from insights and analysis. And I think a lot of people are understanding that to really go out and do a lot of testing on your own and get all this data in-house can be very expensive. So if there's like, you know, insights and analysis that you can borrow from other people in a similar industry that help you shrink that timeline to get the data and to use that in your business, I think people are all for that. And that's why, again, going back to the community factor on LinkedIn is going to expand with LinkedIn Live. I think insights and analysis what trends people are seeing in certain industries. All of that is going to be great content for LinkedIn Live. And I think that could end up being the most engaging because people see different things from their point of view. So a lot of people like to comment, well, I'm seeing this over here from a data perspective. I'm seeing this here. So it's going to get really interesting to see what types of live presentations there are around insights and analysis.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm actually going to kind of have a piggyback point off of that as I move into my number 6. So in terms of insights and analysis, I'm really excited to see how research teams and companies who have really robust research programs start to bust into the space of LinkedIn Live. But along with that, I'm interested to see how companies harness the idea of tips and best practices. I think when you're hearing from a brand in other formats, you are tempted to feel like the information might be biased towards whatever service or product is being produced. But when you have a research team or a company presenting on something they have experience on, you have real people in a live discussion or a real person in a live discussion, it really helps you kind of pull back the curtain. I think it brings forward another layer of trust with what's being discussed. So for me, I think tips and best practices, like obviously you're hearing from people who have been walking down that path, right? So it's an opportunity for you as a company to flex a little bit of that veteran experience that you have in your industry. And people who are still learning in that space, maybe their industry is only perpendicular to what you're doing, are able to benefit from all of that knowledge. So it's another way, going back to like the timeliness, to show this is a tip on exactly what is working now based on our recent experience. And it's a new way to discuss your products or service because it also has a value add of being informative rather than just stagnant. So yeah, I think that's fantastic. And of course, as we know from Facebook and Twitter, like with live, you have the live interactive aspects. You can actually, while you're providing this insight on tips and best practices and thought leadership, you can be taking comments and questions and engaging with an audience who has really specific and informed insights as well. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that's an awesome point. Tips and best practices are going to be a really great content type for LinkedIn Live. There's a couple reasons I really like it for live. One is if you just start posting tips and best practices without that live interaction, that face-to-face, like you were alluding to, it's hard to get that credibility. The other is that LinkedIn is in kind of a pilot beta program right now. So they're getting select users involved. So if you actually do have access and you get access to LinkedIn Live, you're probably already looked at as a little bit more credible because that's how you got the access. So you can come right out of the gate with some awesome tips and best practices, back those out with data and analysis, and really just start crushing with these content types that we're talking about. And you kind of already have the credibility built in because you have access to LinkedIn Live. And so right now is the opportunity to build on that over the next few months while they're continuing to roll out more access. So I think tips and best practices is a hot topic right now. We're definitely going to go all in on tips and best practices around live video, just creating videos in general. Excited next week to bring in some of our other team members to talk about tips and best practices around live in general. But there is one other content type that I think is really great for LinkedIn Live to start. You alluded to it earlier, but Q&A and AMAs, like just that two-way interaction is going to be huge. The ability to put an executive on screen, an author, whoever it is, it doesn't matter, that as long as they're a knowledge expert in the space, and have two-way communication with somebody in the audience. Maybe it's someone who has 20 years of experience answering questions, people who have a few years of experience. I mean, everyone's seen AMAs and Q&As, and people have done it on LinkedIn through a post and through comments and responding to comments. And, even people like Gary Vee talk about how they, respond to all the comments. Well, this is two-way and it's live. So you don't need all that interaction later. I mean, that'll still be there after the fact, live video, but people can be asking questions. You can throw up your title card. Hey, we're going live with so-and-so in 10 minutes. Give us your questions now and we'll go through them during the broadcast. It's just so interactive and dynamic. And if you really tease it right, tell people it's happening, you're consistent, you stick to it, and you get a lot of great questions out of it, it's going to be amazing for your credibility, for your brand growth, to really just make you feel approachable and authentic. So for me, that one, I know we went last with it for today, but that is the gold. If you can consistently do Q&As and AMAs that are interesting and engaging, you will be successful on LinkedIn Live.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think that, I mentioned this earlier, and I think it applies again here, is just the benefit of the LinkedIn Live audience, which hasn't been tapped before because Live is just now rolling out. It's such a savvy audience for brand to brand conversations. So I think that too, the questions are going to be like really sharp, really informed, really dynamic. And the logs that come from these live engagements are going to become really amazing resources for information. You know what I mean? Almost like a living FAQ.
Yeah, absolutely. And beyond that, like it's an opportunity for brands to do some market research. Get some people who are really engaged and ask them if they prefer A, B, or C, or, get their thoughts on certain things, those kind of core users. But really those core users on a professional and business level have a different insight than maybe your fans or consumers on Facebook would. So I think it's great. I think all 7 of these can be done successfully. I think a lot of them overlap. I'm really excited to come back with you soon, Chloe, to go through some more content types we can do with LinkedIn Live. What we're going to have for you guys next week is we're going to be bringing in Jordan and Tori from our customer success team, along with John Jaffe. And Jordan and Tori have a lot of experience helping customers successfully use tech products, grow businesses, just really kind of a hybrid of marketing and usability of the product. And then John Jaffe is our resident live video expert. He's been doing live video for years. He knows the ins and outs of equipment setup, how to run an effective broadcast, everything there is to know about live video. I trust Jonathan Jaffe with this. I encourage anybody who has any questions about best practices, about live, about anything with live video to send us a comment, a question, anything, and we'll make sure we cover it in the broadcast next week. Thank you so much for joining us for the first strategy session with Socialive. We'll be back next week, and we're excited to continue this, to be consistent, to be authentic, and to be flexible with our live video.